Hey guys, ComSciGirl523 here, and we're back today with another tutorial. So, quick update. As usual, I'm going to update you guys on how my most recent map is going. So, for the next SI file, I am in the process of programming it now. The reason I haven't really been streaming it is because my internet has been acting kind of goofy, and it will drop at random times, and I don't want to be in the middle of streaming, then have the internet drop, and stuff like that. So, that's kind of why I haven't been streaming. Once I get that sorted out, then I will go back to streaming. And yeah, so anyways, so this tutorial is going to be about armor stands. Now, usually when you think of armor stands, you think of just the object that you can use to display items in a game. So like typically you just have armor on there. It's usually decoration. However, there are actually many uses for the armor stand. I'm going to show you some of them. So, let's get started. So I consider armor stands a multi-tool. By this, I mean it can be used for more than just its intended purpose. So, for example, usually you see armor stands used just to display armor. You actually can use it to display a lot of other items as well. You can also use it as puzzle pieces and also use it to help with your code and do some interesting mechanics. I'll explain more as I go on. So, let's start with the basics. So, to actually spawn in a custom armor stand, you need to use the summon command. Because an armor stand is considered an entity, not a block, you have to use this command. So this is the generic command. You have summon Minecraft armor stand. XYZ would be the coordinates. You could also use the little tildes if you want to summon the armor stand somewhere relative to where you're standing. And then you again have MBT tags like most other things in Minecraft. So a couple MBT tags that are commonly used are listed here. So I'll explain these each briefly. So you have show arms, and you have to put either a 1 or a 0 after that, 1 being true, 0 being false. It's a Boolean. You could have custom name, or you can give it any name you want. Again, remember when you're naming things, if you're going to do something with the name, it has to be one entire word. It cannot have any spaces. You can have it so it doesn't have a base plate, it's not affected by gravity, it can be invisible, it can be invulnerable so it can't be broken, you can make it so it's a small armor stand, and then you get into a little bit more complex MBT tags. So, if you want to summon an armor stand that already has some armor items or a special block in a certain armor slot, you would use this. So when you have armor items, if you want something on the armor stand's feet, it would go here, legs here, chest here, and head there. For hand items, right hand and left hand. And then the fun thing with armor stands is making them be able to have items posed on top of different blocks. So like you could have a book on a shelf or something like that. So here you would use pose, and you have what you want to pose. So here I have head. It could be right arm, left leg, or body. And then you have X, Y, and Z. Coordinates of how you want it to rotate. I'll show you guys an example of that. So, for example, like say you wanted to have floating text, where it's just the words floating there, you don't see the armor stand, you would do summon armor stand. This would be XYZ or tildes. You do not want it affected by gravity, that way you can adjust it. You don't want the base plate, or you can't have the base plate since it's invisible, it doesn't really matter. I do a standard of having no base plate. You want it to be invisible. And custom name, this is where you would put your text. And custom name visible, you want to set that to true so you actually can see the custom name. It does not auto do that. You have to actually set it to true. Then I mentioned displaying items. Again, custom name, if you want to give it one, you can make it invulnerable so people can't break it. Invisible, no gravity, and armor item. So here, for example, you see you can put item. Also, in these IDs, you can use the other MBT tags for items in there as well. For example, count. You could also use damage and color, etc., etc. And also, since armor stands are entities, you can actually disable the slots on the armor stand. If you want to disable all of them, you just use this number right here. There's also numbers for individual pieces of the armor stand. Those can be found online by just doing a simple search. So now that I've kind of shown you all this, I'll actually show you some examples in Minecraft. Alrighty, welcome to my little armor stand area. See some of the fun stuff you can do with armor stands. So here, for example, is floating text. So here I have summon the armor stand. I'm going to summon it in the general location of where I'm spawning it. Make sure it has no gravity. I just say no base plate. It's going to be invisible. Has a custom name that's going to say your text here. And I want to make sure the custom name is visible. So if I press the button, ta-da, floating text. So then you could also move it around. If I had named it something that was one word, I was able to move it around. A tip that I would like to give you guys, if you want to be able to space out your text before you put the text in, you can always use entity, whoops, not enchant, entity data. So entity data, you can actually move things around. So for example, or change their data tags or NBT tags. So let me do this. At E, type equals armor, stand, radius equals, we'll do 3 because I don't have the custom name. So custom name example. And you see all this pop up, but if you look over, this is turned into example, and I can now adjust it by just using name equals example. And make sure you use the correct capitalization because it is case sensitive. So let's say I want to move it down by like 0.5. So now it's like centered in that block. And then if I wanted to go back and change it to, actually I'll just retype it. Change the text now to what I want it to be. I could actually change it like this. Custom name new text. Ta-da! So that's a way you can make floating text. I do recommend naming it something that's a single word just to start so you can get the spacing. So if you have multiple armor stands in one spot that you're using to space it out, and then put your text in later. So now I'm going to show you some basic MBT tags. So for starters, this one's just going to show you how you can have the arm showing on the armor stand. If I press the button here, you see this armor stand now has arms. For this one, I'm going to disable that. I didn't want this to accidentally trigger that. So I press this. You can have a small armor stand. Again, show arms and small is true. And then another example I have here, small, invulnerable, show arms, no base plate, and no gravity. Oops, I have to disable that. There you go, no base plate, and it's also not affected by gravity. And that I can prove by just, if I do, whoops, R equals like 2, type equals armor underscore stand. Or, yep, see, ta-da! I want to go back up, float it, and there you go. I'm going to show you how to do displays. So I have a button here now. Let's get rid of those. So now I'm going to show you how to do displays. So for displays, I'm going to show you how I set up to make it look like there's like a sandwich on a plate. So for starters, let me grab my code over here. So here I have an armor stand that's going to have it spawn one to the right of it, right here. Its name is going to be plate. It's going to be invisible, and it's going to have a heavy weighted pressure plate on it, which would be the iron pressure plate. So now I named it plate, so I can do this. Name equals plate. And this is basically how you adjust it. Probably go one more. No, it was pretty good where it was. That looks like a plate. So then if I wanted to have bread next, so I'll get rid of this. Here, I'll just break the command block. Let me just grab the button so it'll be easier. So this is basically how you can use armor stands to create, because this one, since it is bread, when bread is put on an armor stand, it's facing right side up. You need to actually rotate it. So I have to pose the head to 90 degrees in the X direction. So I have that there, so I can actually move this around. This one's called, what did I name it? Bread 1. And I'm going to make it go that direction. Let me see, did I move in the right direction? Nope, well, kind of, sort of, whoops. Nope, he's going the other direction. He's going the Z direction. Probably should have checked that first. It happens. A lot of this is guess and test when you're trying to move things around because things get rotated and things act goofy. There we go. So let's move it back over the top. Yeah. It'll turn darker if the armor stand is stuck inside a block, so once I start moving this down, it should actually fix that problem. 0.1. And actually rotate it around. Move it over. Right now it's inside the wall. It goes that way. Nope, wrong one. That was the X direction. So now you see the breads there. If I go into spectator mode, you actually can see the armor stands. You see this armor stand's here. The other armor stand is actually back here. That's why it looks dark. If I were to rotate the armor stand around, that would actually lighten up because then the armor stand would not be inside a block. So I could actually do that by keeping the general direction. However, I want you to go 180 degrees. And then I have to move it towards me. Should have been the Z direction. Wait, let me double check. Yeah, you're changing the Z direction. We want positive Z, not negative Z. I'll do this a little bit more so I can actually... There we go. It's farther back than I expected. You see, you now have bread on a plate. You could also do this with other items. You can make an entire sandwich. As you can see, it does take some time, so I think I'll just stop there with the bread. But you can see how you can stack items and make it look like an actual 3D object for displays. Yeah, so now I'm going to show you another cool thing. So this is, if you remember if you watched and or played Solve a Case 5, remember I made a drill? So I'm going to show you a smaller version of that. So if I just tab out for a second. Let's see. Okay, I already have the coordinates for everything. So let me grab this. Place that there. I got the coordinates for this one ahead of time. As you can see, as I'm typing here, you can see if I go through here, you can actually do decimals when you're placing items. So that's a 0.5. Now, right now, it doesn't look much like a drill because this is straight up and down. If I were to actually pose the head so that it's rotated for the middle one, I have rotated it about 45 degrees. I used, I'll show you again the command. I did the Y direction, I rotated it. And then I'm going to change the entity name of the middle one to A, so they're all the same. And now I can TP relatively using these tildes, and this is the general direction I want to rotate in. If I hit always active, you can now see it's rotating very slowly. If I want to speed it up, let me do like 20. Whoops, that's not it. You can make it spin a lot faster, and that's how you can kind of make like moving objects and kind of cool things. Turn that off so it doesn't lag out the computer. That's also how I ended up doing this. I just have a running command block that's constantly changing the pose of the left arm. It's actually underground right here. I actually have a clock running it because I'm moving it two different things. Let me just show you. Posing the left arm that direction. Posing the left arm that direction. So yeah, that's kind of like how you can use armor stands for more like decorative things in your world, kind of bringing your world to life using like making the drill or making floating text, etc., etc. So now I'm going to show you guys a little bit more interesting things you can do with armor stands. As you see, armor stands can be used to create some cool moving objects, but you could also use armor stands to create some interesting mechanics. For example, if you remember, if you saw or played Solve a Case 5, you remember I had the moving ski lift, or in Solve a Case 4, I had the elevator. This was done using armor stands. So in this case, you want to use what's called the passengers tag. So a passenger, basically, you could have an entity riding on top of an armor stand. So this is what you use. So you have passengers, entity, custom name, you give a custom name. Again, you do color, whatever it is for the entity, and or any other MBT tags. Then you can also name the armor stand itself. So I will show you that in Minecraft now. Alright, we're back. I'm just going to patch up my floor real quick. That's going to bother me otherwise. Alright, clear, and we'll just do that. I like the new 1.12 mechanic where you can restore things. It makes it really easy for me. Alright, so for example, you have a trackless minecart, so I can summon a trackless minecart. How I did that, I gave it a name, S1 and C1. S1 is the minecart, C1 is the actual armor stand, and I have passengers here. You can also do this with shulkers. So I have shulker, I'm naming that E. Shulkers, you can actually color them. I did not know this till now. Actually, I ended up Googling a little bit, and I found out you can change the shulker color, because when I spawned it in, it was a different color than a normal shulker, and I was really confused. I didn't realize they added this tag here for shulkers. You can change the color. So, for example, I could have a cyan shulker with the name E. And shulker, since it is an entity, I can stand on it. Therefore, you can use it to move things. I'm going to show you an example with the minecart, how I did the ski lift. This is actually a version of how I did the ski lift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spawn in the minecart, and I'm just going to get a redstone block because I don't have one. Should have put one in my inventory, and there we go. As you see, it's moving. So I have these points because I was actually, in order to do this, you need to figure out sort of how the minecart's going to move. And I actually can ride this if I wanted to. And there you go. I know it doesn't look much like a ski lift. Whoops. I forgot I was going to walk right into those blocks. I think I'm in creative. However, you add this mountain around it and you add the track for it. It looks like a ski lift. So how I did this is I'm teleporting the armor stand relative to its location. So I have it going in the negative X direction until it reaches coordinates that are near this block. Then it teleports positive Y and positive Z. Then it teleports positive X, and then the reverse of the other one. And it does this continuously, checking for its location. When it detects the armor stand itself, as you saw, I'm using the armor stand's name as track. It knows where the armor stand is. I can go into... You can see the armor stand actually holding the minecart, and that's what it's actually detecting. So those are some cool, interesting things you can do with armor stands when it comes to creating cool mechanics. So now I'm going to turn this off so it doesn't lag to Kingdom Come. Alrighty. So now I'll head back to my code to explain this last little piece, which is how you can actually use armor stands inside your code. So there are basically 3 known ways you can check how many things a player has done. So for example, like in my maps, I sometimes give you guys the ability to do multiple things at once. Like I say, oh, you need to talk to these 3 people, and you can talk to them in any order. How I'm doing that is there's 3 different ways you can do that. You can do it via a scoreboard, a circuit, or what I like to call the anchor point method, which is what I use most of the time, which is using armor stands. I will show you the scoreboard and the circuit version in a later tutorial when I discuss puzzles. But for now, I'm just going to show you the anchor point method, and I'll also explain that further as well when I do puzzles. So let's go to that. We're back. So, as you see, I have 1, 2, and 3. So, for example, here I'm going to have it doing a test for testing for spot, meaning this armor stand here, to be up here at spot 3. So, if I teleport that, it says green, I press green, blue, and pink. So now it detected that was there. It says next code, which I had it say. If I reset, you can reset it. I can do it again. I can do blue, green, pink. It's at the next code. So basically, you can trip off different things. How I'm doing this is whenever I press one of these, it's teleporting spot up in general by 1. So no matter what order I press this in, this will always go up by 1. And since I'm detecting for it to reach this level, which is of radius 0, because it's exactly centered on that block, it'll know that, okay, I've completed all the tasks, and therefore trip off next code. So this is how you, like a basic idea of how you can use that in puzzles. There's some more advanced things you can do with it. I will discuss that more when I get into puzzles, because I'm going to talk about the execute command at that point, and there's some special things you can do with the execute command and armor stands. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of how you can use armor stands in various different ways. I hope this was very helpful. If you have any other questions about anything I explained here, feel free to comment them in the comments below. Also, if there's anything you want me to go more in depth about, let me know. And if you have any more ideas for more tutorials, let me know. I do still have that list from previously, but I am more than willing to add more things to the list. And yeah, so I guess that's it for now. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.